The only thing that's changed with Danny Peña is his accomplishments caught up with his big fucking mouth. If I leave here today and you like me, I did something fucking wrong. Yet you want to be politically correct. Compared to Dan Peña, barrio bad boy, that created $775 billion of fucking wrong just like you. Is there anybody in this fucking room that's high performance?
Yeah, and then we got all silent. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Very nice, very good to see you here with so many of you. And that's a very right decision to come here because we're going to have a very, very special afternoon. And of course, that's due to our guests from this afternoon, the people that we will be listening to very, very attentively, very long. My name is Raymond Johnson. I'm your host for tonight, and together with Tom.
Hello everybody. My name is Tom van der Ven. I'm from the organization CROF. I work together with the team of people of TEDxYouth Nijmegen. And like Raymond said, it's a really great honor to have you all here. It's going to be a really good event. And first we're going to start to ask the team of TEDxYouth Nijmegen to come up front here on stage. Because these are the people Ramon, Stefan, they made this event possible. Give them a warm welcome.
It feels a little bit like the Eurovision Song Contest, so just put this together, all right? We might make it as exciting as that, right? Okay.
So, now the moment for where you all came from and where you're waiting for is the moment that Mr. Dan Peña will come on stage, and I want to ask 3 questions. One, please everybody put your phones on silent mode, because we are here sitting here for 2 hours or longer. But don't put it out. Make sure your camera is ready, because we ask you, the second question is make as many photos as you can, and please share them with our social media page of TEDxYouth Nijmegen. We like to have a lot of photos of the event. We have people who record the event, are making photos, but it's also nice to have photos from the audience. Then, now is the moment arrived that we all been waiting for. I want to welcome to the stage Mr. Dan Peña. Thank you, Mr. Peña, for being here. I will give the floor immediately to you, and enjoy, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm wondering if this carpet's here because I have artificial knees, and it does feel better, but I won't necessarily stand on it. Thank you very much. During the time I'll be talking, I'll be calling you kids, because I'm either old enough to be your father or grandfather. And so you're all kids. But I'm driving here from Amsterdam, and Sally and I took a little nap, but then when I woke up just as we were coming into the town, I've been here before. Not at this university, not in this room, but I've been here before in 1952 and 1953. Most of you weren't born. Was anybody born before 52 in this room? One. Okay. I was here in 52, 53 because my father was an army officer. He was able to bring us to Europe. We were stationed in France, but I saw this city, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, flat. There was nothing because of the war. There were still, allegedly, there were Nazis running around in the hills still, 6, 7, 8 years after the war. So it's not like I'm coming home. But it is kind of like we're coming home, because for those of you that may have done more homework than others, and as we go through the slides and we go through my presentation, the Netherlands has been very good to me. I had the privilege of teaching at Nijmegen, Erasmus, University of Amsterdam, and known some of the notables and luminaries of this country, not the least of which was Freddie Heineken, God rest his soul. But one of the things that we're going to talk about is success leaves clues. Most of you now listen, read the things written about Mr. Heineken like he's a saint, like he's a Santa Claus, like he's an angel. And he wasn't any of those things. He was a hard bastard. And I'm told his daughter is even harder. Now, if he was a hard bastard, and his daughter was even harder, and Gerard Heineken, who founded Heineken in 1864 by talking his rich mother into buying a brewery, they're all hard bastards. So why do you try so fucking hard to be soft? Why do you try so fucking hard to be politically correct? Success leaves clues. I'm going to talk about Steve Jobs, who I had the privilege of knowing. Elon Musk. Henry Ford I. All hard motherfuckers. Yet you want to be politically correct. You want to fit in. You want to be liked. There's not anybody in this room that doesn't want to be liked, except me. If I leave here today and you like me, I did something fucking wrong. I'm not here for your likes, your admiration, your accolades. I've already got those enough. I got them running out my ass. I'm here to maybe, just maybe, I'll turn 1, 2, 4, 5 of you so you can be all you can be. Most of you shouldn't have been born, and we're going to prove this as a statistic. At least half of you were by accident. Not because you're 7, 8 years younger or older than the other sibling. You should have rolled down the inside of your mama's leg. I'm here to tell you the fucking truth, as we know it in 2019. And I'm going to tell you the things that I know work. And I made work here in the late 90s and early 2000s. And we haven't got the questions yet, but there are such things as stupid questions. So when we get to the Q&A, don't ask me any stupid fucking shit. I'm not interested. I'm also not interested in making this work. Now, Holland is not heaven. In 1996, 1997, I had the privilege of making a speech at the Amstel Club. This was my topic. When I taught at Nijmegen, when I taught at Erasmus, this was my topic. At that time, the property market was going like this. The stock market was going like this. Everything was perfect. And I got about 6 or 7 minutes into my talk at the Amstel Club, and Mr. Heineken, may he rest in peace, stood up and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Peña, but could you talk about something else?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean, Mr. Heineken?" I didn't know who he was, and then he said, "This is Mr. Heineken." What do you mean? He says, "We all know it's going to end, but we don't want to hear about it. So let's talk about something else." So then, as legend has it, the then chairman of ING Bank stood up and said, "Mr. Peña, why don't you talk about prostitution? We all know about that." And I knew very little about prostitution at that time, in the Netherlands anyway. And so I talked about something else. My talk, instead of being an hour and 15 minutes long, was only about 25 minutes long, and we just retired to the bar and we had lots to drink. And I know the difference between Old Geneva and New Geneva. But Holland is not heaven. Yet the same things that were taught in the universities in 1996, 7, and 8 are still being taught today. Success leaves clues. It's the lowest interest rates in 5,000 years. Lowest interest rates in 5,000 years. They're giving money away. What are you going to tell your kids? What are you going to tell your grandkids 20 years from now? Gee, Daddy, Grandpa, what did you do during the greatest transformation of wealth in the history of the world? Oh, I sat on my ass. I kept my thumb up my ass and didn't do anything. When I'm at the business schools, I ask how many people in this school have ever taken a class on how to buy a business? No hands go up. How many people in this classroom have ever taken a class on how to sell a business? No hands go up. How many people in this class have ever had a class in leadership? No hands go up. Well, the three most important things about growing a business, starting a business, selling a business, you've never had a fucking class in. And you call this a school for business? Well, the same can be told, the same can be said of the current crop of the gurus that you follow on podcasts, etc. Most people realize the reason why Facebook and most of the social media aren't good for us is because we're procrastinating, because you've been led to believe, wrongfully, that listening to a podcast, reading a book, watching a video is taking action. The only thing that taking action is taking action, and just fucking do it. Yes, my new moniker as of late is the $1 trillion man, because we cost $775 billion in wealth that I created with meatheads just like you. $775 fucking billion with morons just like you. Let's get the hang of this. I'm the only one that's created millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions, tens of billions, and hundreds of billions that is on the circuit today. In the last 100 years, and I'm sure for the next 100 years. Yet you're going to go and listen to somebody's podcast on the way home when you drive home from here. Because you want to feel good. I'm not interested in making you feel good, because I know that's why you're fucked up to begin with. Somebody already made you feel good. And if love got the fucking job done, you wouldn't be here. Love doesn't get the job done. I wish it did. Yet what did your mother say to you? You can be anything you want to be in life, right? She fucking lied to you. In Britain, unless you went to Oxford or Cambridge, you can't be Prime Minister. Unless you're a Kennedy, a Bush, a Clinton, or went to the Ivy League schools, you cannot be president of the United States. And it's no different here. Now, it used to be Laird produced politicians and heads of big corporations. I haven't talked there in 20 years, I can't speak for their record now. But why did the Dutch industrialists start Laird after the war, 1946? Because they wanted to compete with the Ivy League schools. They wanted to compete with the Oxfords and Cambridges of this world on a business level. Because they knew they had to rebuild, not just the Netherlands, but they had to rebuild Europe. And they did a damn good job. Again, I saw this country when it was flat. You look at it perhaps from movies or newsreels when it was flat. I saw it, and I still remember it. Holy shit. Is this a technology school? Okay. QLA gives you quantum leap advantage, which is what I'm famous for, gives you the choice to die financially standing like a man or a woman, or continue to die on your financial knees, living quiet lives of desperation as your parents did and do. Don't answer this question. How many of you that have children, first of all, how many have children in the room?
Yes.
Poor fuckers. Okay. How many of you would like your children to be like your parents? Nobody's hand went up. How many of you that have children would like your children to be like you? You're lying. You're fucking lying. Now why is that? You've got kids. You don't want them to be like your parents, and a few of you lie and say that you wouldn't mind them being like you. Because you have no ability, no training to produce high-performance children. Unless you're Andrew Agassi and Steffi Graf, which were world-class tennis players, Olympians, gold medalists, won all the big championships, it's probably fair to assume that their kids are going to be high performance at whatever they do. But most of us didn't have that. And for a young man, myself, who was a barrio bad boy, who tried to kill his teacher in grade school, who'd been arrested 5-6 times, done awful things that I'm not proud of, to be standing here today is a fucking miracle. But my parents did some things right. And we're going to talk about those things, and I can tell you with 100% assurance that the things that they did when I was growing up, virtually none of you in this room, your parents did for you. % of people will run out of money before they run out of time. Meaning, you're going to die being broke. Everybody get that? At least 50%. That's why people come to me. Because if I created 775 billion with fucking morons, amoebas, I'd like to say, it sounds a better story if I say 40 IQ, but it's not. I've gone down as low as Forrest Gump, 80 IQ. My 80 IQ guy did $400 million deal, which is about $650 million. Literally Forrest Gump. My 180 IQ genius, rocket scientist, only made 40 million pounds. Most of you in this room would settle, if I wrote you a check for 40 million, let's call it euros, make it simple. 40 million euros, how many would take a check and just get up and leave? A few of you are honest. 40 million, kid. Just get up and leave. Don't go back to your parents. Don't ever say hello to them. Erase them from your Facebook. Change your phone number. Because that's what it'll take. That's what it'll take. Yet nobody tells you that because they've got something to sell. They have an upsell, right? They've got a side sell. I'm here for free. Just as I was for free at Nairobi, just as I was for free at Erasmus, just as I was free at Oxford a couple of years ago, I'm going to be speaking at the University of Pennsylvania, which is President Trump's alumni. He's an alumni, one of the Ivy League schools, because I feel absolutely my mission. I'm obsessed with passing the word on and getting as much of my material online as humanly possible. Because I'm not going to be here forever, although I plan on living to be 120. I'm certainly not going to be talking free in front of groups like this when I'm 120. In fact, this carpet's a pretty good idea. We've got to do this more often. This is easier on my knees. Success leaves clues. This is a part of it. Okay.
We'll fly away later.
I have a new one.
You have a new one? Okay. Now, that's my lovely wife who's sitting here in the front row, and myself. Now see in our home, which is a 15th century storybook castle, that we've lived there 35 years, and that has become more or less infamous now, where we bring meatheads like you through, and it's booked up for the next year. It's booked up for the next year. And as I was telling somebody earlier, we used to get 3,000 people on my website 5 years ago a month. 50% of those were repeats. So we had 50 people a day come to QLA. Now we get 10,000 a day. 10,000 a day. For those of you that understand anything about supply and demand, I'm an overnight success after 25 years of coaching, and I'm an overnight success after 50 years of being a high-performance person. I'm an overnight success. Now we get 10,000 a day because the kids are finally waking up. You've been sold a load of shit. Now, when I was growing up, if my dad said bullshit, I just put my head down because my dad believed children should be seen and not heard. So I just kept my mouth shut. Now, when you talk shit to your kids, they can just Google and say, Dad's full of shit. Mom's full of shit. But now the kids realize that taking action is doing something. Taking action is not living quiet lives of desperation like your parents. 75% of the people in the United States and 85% of the people in Europe live paycheck to paycheck. Hand to mouth. I would venture to guess almost everybody in this room either lives that today or came from that background, living paycheck to paycheck. And your parents didn't tell you were poor. You may not have been going on holidays like some of the rich kids. Well, you didn't know any rich kids, so you didn't know what they were doing. This is what they were doing. I won't say that that's an average Friday night for Sally and I, but it's not so strange that we get dressed up and I'm wearing my Scottish kilt.
The other one, sir.
The other one? Okay. For more than 25 years, I've been the Leonidas of financial coaching. What does that mean? It means that show me your friends and I'll show you your future. With one or two exceptions in this room, you don't have anybody that you're friendly with that looks like that. Some of you take Taekwondo. Some of you, to me, that's just like taking Pilates. Big fucking deal. We have boxing at the seminar now. It's the most popular thing we do. Do you realize that there are people in this audience that have never been yelled at, never been spanked? I don't mean sexually spanked, I mean discipline spanked, okay? Have never been in a fight with on a schoolyard, a fist fight with another kid. I don't see how that's possible growing up and getting out of school. But of course, then look at you, how you've turned out. My father, God rest his soul, his brother and sister, older, used to complain to him. He said, aren't you being too rough on Danny, me? Because he used to beat me like a rented mule. I deserved every beating I got, and I should have got 1,000 more beatings. But my father would look at his brother and his sister and say, how's your crackhead whore daughter's program working out? How's your convicted felon son's program working out? Because my dad's brother and sister were easy on their children. And the crack whore daughter is not an exaggeration, and the convicted felon is not an exaggeration. Yet my father beat me like a fucking rented mule. The way my mother got me to do something, I'm not going to do that, Mama. Well, we're going to tell your dad when he gets home. Exactly what do you want me to do, Mama? If the nuns beat me and my dad got home, then he beat me. If the priest beat me and then my dad got home, he beat me. In my day and age, the educator was always right. We know that's not the case today. Even when the educator is right, it's not the case today. And look what it's produced. And look what it's produced. The sum result of this experience for the next couple hours that we're going to share is that the reason that you're there and I'm here is that my parents put me through a process where measurable results were demanded. They didn't ask me my opinion. They told me what I was going to do. And I certainly know that's not politically correct today. I use words that are certainly not politically correct, yet we've got to pack counts, right? Some of you have come from long distances, I'm told. That's great. If somebody came from Israel, where's the Israeli? Somebody came from Israel. I'm going to say nothing that's not free on my website, other than it's in person. I'm not going to say nothing that's different than any of my YouTubes, other than I'm in person. Why would anybody come from Israel? I try to get out of Israel myself, but that's a whole other story. That's a whole other story. But why? Because you're not happy. A slide's coming up. Gallup poll 2016, beginning of 2017. Gallup, our pollsters, did a worldwide survey. 87% of the people on the planet are unhappy. 87. And you're not in the 13. Why aren't they happy? Because nobody expected anything from them and the bar was set low. And look what it's resulted in. Is this going to play? Are we hooked up? Yeah, it's on the stick. Oh, never mind. It says, when I can take somebody with an amoeba for an IQ, and he clocks up 40 million pounds, I am God. You don't know anybody else that produces those kind of results. You don't know anybody else that has teenage multimillionaires. You don't know anybody else that produced the largest deal in recorded history, $500 billion in neon. You don't know anybody else. Of course, that's why you're here. You're hoping that some of it vicariously rubs off on your sorry ass. It won't. And the 2 or 3 old geeks gets in the room, no, it's not going to rub off. Their time for shit rubbing off on you is 50 years ago, old timers. But for the young kids, it might rub off. For the young kids, they may use the material that's free on my site. Today I'm not going to teach you, but lead you based on my own 50 years experience coaching, mentoring kids to be more than they ever dreamt they could be, super high performers. Now, I'm not going to ask this question because it's a debilitating question. But just think to yourself, like it's a rhetorical question, how many of you in this room would consider yourself high performance? Okay, I said don't answer, right? There's not a high performance person in this room compared to me. So I'll ask the question again. Compared to Dan Peña, barrio bad boy, that's created $775 billion of fucking morons just like you. Is there anybody in this fucking room that's high performance? That's what I thought. So don't bullshit yourself. I've accumulated more money than the entire personal development industry since the beginning of fucking time. Cumulatively. Now money's not everything. I understand that. But it's the only thing anybody keeps track of. I tell the kids, go and change 1 billion lives, become wealthy, and then save the world. Marching around embassies with placards is not going to save the world. Does that... No, I'm not going to ask it to anybody, because there's probably somebody stupid enough to say that marching around embassies does change the world. It doesn't change a fucking thing. All it does is heighten security for the people in the embassy. That's all it does. How many in this room have ever been in an embassy? Okay. Okay. Well, that's surprising. Okay. You pissed off a lot of people. What did you do? I told them the fucking truth. Do you realize that this audience is no different than when I was at Oxford? Other than the IQ level was significantly higher, but other than that, they still don't know how to pull the trigger. They don't. Now, I must admit, when I was at Nyroder, back in the 90s, the kids, it resonated with. I wish that I had been bright enough at the time to take their names and numbers down and keep track of them. Because I lost contact with them over 20 plus years. A few of them have contacted me, and a few of them have thanked me, and a few of them are on my Hall of Fame. Interesting fact, of the 67 people I have on the Hall of Fame, I have another 50 that have made at least as much money, if not more. But they don't want to be on the Hall of Fame. They don't want the notoriety. Almost nobody doesn't want the money. But not everybody, maybe 1 in 3 or 1 in 2 would rather shun the notoriety. Some of you in this room can probably relate to that. Those people that don't want the notoriety don't give a shit about saving the world. And at the end of this talk, I'm going to talk about global warming. Hoax. I'm going to talk about a lot of other things. Hoax. But I'm going to say it right now. There's been 11 scientific expeditions at the North and South Pole since Amundsen discovered the South Pole in 1911? 1911. 11. This is one of them, my wife and I, and the other 10 are dead. Yet there are people in this room that talk about global warming, hoax. Have you ever been to both poles? Have you ever talked to the scientists? No. You just flap your fucking lips. We went there. Why do you, other than it's politically correct to fit in, have you been to both poles?
No. I want to ask you.
We got a Q&A. There's always one melon hand. We're going to talk about global warming. We're going to talk about when was the first automobile? 1774, steam engine. When was the first electric car? 1832. Do you think if we really wanted electric cars by now, we could have fucking had them if we wanted them? Yes. If it wasn't for Elon Musk sticking his foot up the ass of General Motors and Detroit, we wouldn't be having electric cars. And we're going to have electric cars around the world when the Middle East and the United States and South America runs out of hydrocarbons. Not before. They have 500 years of hydrocarbons under the ground. You understand? 500 fucking years. And you can go and plug your fucking car in like a moron. Who are you kidding? Wake up. I got a whole section on this. Okay. Anyway, I get crazy a little bit. Okay. By the way, I had forgotten I didn't know how to spell Nyroder. That's not how I spelled it. And then somebody told me how to spell it. And so then, in fact, I am the first and perhaps the only recipient of the Nyroder Business School, not humanitarian award, but I got some award back in 97 or 98 from Nyroder University. Because of the new vanguard thoughts that I was teaching, buying the business, selling the business, leadership. Nellie something or other was the head of the school then. Her name escapes me now. Yeah, okay. She was the head of the school, and she allowed me the latitude to teach these crazy things. She then got fired, not because of me, I don't believe, but she then got moved on. She's a political animal. She's in various other and sundry positions of politics. Okay, that's good. Okay. Thank you. Okay. By the way, at the Naval Academy, we had to do the same thing. Shit didn't work. And so we had a midshipman hit the deal. Now, you've been led to believe to be in the top 2%. And this is a bell curve, okay? Most of you guys have IQs between 70 and 130. And then very few of you are at the outer ends, thank God. But QLA is only for the top 0.00001%. I'm going to do this slow because you're not probably numerate. 0.00001%. Of the 7.5 billion people on the planet, there's approximately 750,000 of you that can do this. Not because it's intellectually difficult. It's an emotional motherfucker. 120-hour weeks. Disassociating yourself. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Self-esteem is built the first 7 or 8 years of life. Who are you around the first 7 or 8 years of life? Mom, right? Maybe a brother, sister, right? Maybe a grandparent, right? Most of you in this room don't have self-esteem. Then, coupled with show me your friends and I'll show you your future, you're the average of the 5 or 6 people you hang with, you chill with. Warren Buffett doesn't chill. Bill Gates doesn't chill. Steve Jobs doesn't chill. Elon Musk doesn't chill. Henry Ford didn't chill. Freddie Heineken didn't chill. Yet you look forward to the weekends to chill. Success leaves clues. And the corollary to that is, the opposite of that is failure. Now, why are all these people? Sally and I were in Italy last year. In Verona. We climbed up some ruin, and we waited 45 minutes for a drink. And Sally said, words to the effect, I think that we're chilling now because we waited 45 minutes to order a glass of wine. 45 minutes. Is that what chilling is? I'm in the regret minimization business. I want you guys, you kids, except for the 2 old gits, I want you to have less regrets when you're 80, not more regrets. I now say 90 because I'm almost 80 now. So I mean, when I started saying this 30 years ago, 80 seemed like a good number. Now I'm almost there, so I'm changing now to 90. I'm in the regret minimization for 90. Okay? But there is never an easy time to make a hard decision. When you break up with a girlfriend, break up with a boyfriend, tell your son or your daughter that, you know, they either get out of the house, get a job, or get out of the house. All those decisions are hard. So what do? We procrastinate, we put them off. And we're left with an audience like this. But remember, there's only about 750,000 people that are willing to make the sacrifices. So I created 775 billion with 0.0001% of the planet. Just imagine if you had been taught this stuff since you were in the 2nd trimester of your mommy's tummy, which has been proven that you can hear stuff that goes on from the 2nd trimester on. Just imagine where you'd be. Yes, that's soon going to change. I'm making a big announcement at the end of today. But for right now, it's the $50 billion man. And I didn't even come up with this. About 8 or 9 years ago, one of my staff saw one of the gurus say that he had created $7.5 billion in revenue. He's a marketing guy. And so he said, they said, you know, we should put some numbers together, Mr. Peña, and see where you are. The first time we ran the numbers, 34 billion. The second time we ran the numbers, 56 billion. The third time we ran the numbers, 150, and then the 50 billion kind of had a ring. And as you can see, that's what my suit says. $50 billion man. Now I get rid of all these fucking suits. Now I got these $50 billion man suits. Anyway, I knew as soon as you bought these for me, Sally, I was, you know, anyway. See, and we always want to shift responsibility, right? Sally's fault. Sally's fault. Last night when we went into a bar at the Amstel Hotel, the Amstel Hotel used to be the rocking place to go for drinks and stuff. It looked like the Bataan Death March. They had two guys from the Middle East, and nothing wrong with being from the Middle East, but you don't need to talk, you know, Arabic, and you know. And then we had one fat Argentinian sitting there complaining how the beer wasn't cold enough. And I thought, boy, what the fuck's happened to this place? You know. You've been told to set small goals so then when you fail, you're not as disappointed. You have been told that to set a time limit. By the time I'm 30, by the time I'm 40, by the time I'm 50. I was taught to do things as soon as humanly possible. As soon as humanly possible. And when I dreamt this, and I decided that I wanted to live in a castle on an island, it's not the kind of island I thought about, Great Britain. I thought about an island off the coast of Britain, but it was pretty far-fetched. But then, when I turned all my efforts, all my obsession, everything that I had in my body to gaining wealth, I gained wealth. It's only I became a coach after the fact. When the shareholders, people like you, threw me out 25 years ago, what am I going to do now? I've got a lot of money, arguably more money than I could ever spend. And one of my very dear friends, one of the few friends that I have, said, why don't you coach? He didn't say give back, like you say now. Why don't you coach? You've got a lot of knowledge. Why don't you share it? I taught university, not the university that I talked about here. I taught university at my alma mater 1 year. It was an honors class. I found it very unfulfilling. The class started, and this reminds me, I'm having a deja vu. There was 330 students in a room just like this, the first day of class. It was an honors class. You had to compete to get in the class. The last day of class, we had 13. We went from 330 to 13. Because I held the little shits accountable. Pop quizzes, homework assignments they had to do, papers, quarterfinals, midterm finals, finals. Now that went over like a turd in a punch bowl. Even in 94, 95 when I was doing it. 13 made it to the end. So about halfway through the semester, because everybody was gone, I sent limousines to pick the kids up, and they take them to my house, and we have class at my house, which was overlooking the Pacific Ocean, Wales, and shit, you know. And we started with 13. If I change 13 of your lives, I will consider it successful. Because I know how hard it is. Don't raise your hand. How many in this room are willing to close down your Facebook, which is a total waste of fucking time? Okay? How many in this room are Pinster and all those other pieces of shit? Which are all a waste of time. Not many. Not many. So I rest my case. So next time you complain that Trump's a loudmouth, which he is. Full disclosure, I knew President Trump before he was president, a long, long time ago. I haven't talked to him in 25 years. But Donald Trump has changed the financial makeup of the world forevermore. Whether you like him or hate him. I don't like everything the president does. For example, the tariffs with the Chinese. The Chinese have been butt-fucking everybody on the planet for 50 years. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. But nobody was wanting to go heads up with him. Now, he may not get reelected because he's doing this, but he doesn't give a shit. He's going to bring the Chinese to their financial knees. And contrary to what you think, the U.S. can afford this, and the Chinese cannot. There's going to be collateral damage here in the Netherlands. But I already told you Holland's not heaven. There's going to be collateral damage in Britain. But the Brits are all fucking around with Brexit. Brexit will be here. When it first happened, I said Brexit is a 5-year program. I was making a joke. We're 3 years into it now, and we're probably going to have maybe 2 more years. Strange times are those in which we live when the old and young are taught falsehoods in school, and the person that dares to tell the truth is called at once a lunatic and a fool. I have been chastised, bad-mouthed for 20 years. My life changed, not personally my life. London Real, you're going to hear from one of my successful mentees later on today, Michael. But another successful mentee, Brian Rose, changed my life when I was on his show. I had discounted social media altogether. I discounted YouTube. I didn't know what that was. The first time I was on his show was Easter Sunday, like Christ, I mean, a great day, 2014, when I had 100 a day on my site. Now I have 10,000. So forevermore, I'm thankful for Brian, and for those of you that have followed Brian Rose and London Real, you've seen the transition he's made. From the little hippie wannabe for everything for free, and now he's got a paid model. Brian only listens to 5% of what I say. Michael listens to maybe 25%. I'm pointing at him because he's sitting over there. 25% of what I say. Just imagine if these guys listen to 100% of what I say. The billionaires listen to maybe not 100%, 80%, 90%. We had a kid come to the seminar last year. 10 months later from the seminar, and I'm not selling the seminar. Seminars are fully booked for a year or more. He made $40 million, which isn't such a big deal, really, to me. But to him, to say it's life-changing is an understatement of biblical proportion. When you go from minus $300 in your checking account to $40 million in your checking account, ladies, you understand what I'm saying? Because ladies have much easier time getting used to the money than the guys. That's just it. I'm telling you, it's true. Just imagine, for those of you, your moms, if you grew up with 40 million in the bank. Just think about it. Some of it would ruin you. I'd like to die, let me be ruined, you know? Some of you would have done much better with your lives. But at least you would have had the opportunity. And then when they said you can be anything you want to be, they wouldn't have been lying 100%. Because if you got $40 million, you can be almost anything you want to be. There's no such thing as work-life balance. There's work-life choices, and you make them and they have consequences. Again, Holland is not heaven. I remember 20 plus years ago, Vinica, my longtime senior assistant, they were sitting at the Hilton Hotel. There were in the outside bar, and then they got the boats and the canals, for those of you that have been there, and the sun's beating down on our face, and the Dutch thinking that there's never going to be a property recession. And I used to measure across the canal. There were homes, and first in guilders, then in euros. 3 million guilders, 5 million guilders, 7 million guilders, and then the guy bought the house next door and connected it to his daughter. I knew that was the top of the market. And it was the top of the market. When you start buying 5 million guilders houses and then making a bridge between your house and your daughter's house, that's the top of the property market. That's the top of the property market. Now, most of you weren't, don't remember that, but I'm sure your parents remember it. Now, this is probably the most important slide you're going to see today. There's you, the one with the big nose at the bottom, right? For those of you that have dreams, this is what you got to go through to get to your goals. Relatives, first. Next, friends. Next, pessimists. Your own guilt, because you've got a lack of self-esteem. Society in general. And then fear. It's no wonder you don't achieve what you could. I left the barrio, I left the United States in 1981. I was already successful. Rolls Royce, since I'm 26 and a half years old. Matching Mercedes. I lived in a Frank Lloyd Wright type, not Frank Lloyd Wright, but a Frank Lloyd Wright type house. But I knew to do what I wanted to do, that I knew it was within me to be all I could be, I had to leave my family. 7 years I didn't talk to my mother. 7 years. Now, coincidentally, Mom, God rest your soul, it's the 7 years I made the most money. Now, is that a coincidence? I think so. I'm going to say it again for the meathead, just in case. I know English isn't your primary language, so I'm going to say it real slow. 7 years I didn't talk to my mother. Coincidentally, that's the same 7 years I made most of my money. Was that a coincidence? Lady up here, no. We've had people, I've met people that talk to their mothers 10, 12, 14 times a fucking day. That's psychotic. And I'm not talking about she's dying of cancer. I know. She's well. She's like a fucking lumberjack. Nothing wrong with her, right? What in God's name, Allah Buddha's name, can you possibly talk to your mom 10 times a day about? That's mentally healthy. Nothing. Some of you in this room, I can tell. Now, normally it's women. Not always. But see, most of the men in this room should squat to pee anyway. So there's no difference. But this is on my site. All this information is free. Wake up. Is this why your father lost his job at the Damson Hotel? Okay. His dad was the chef when I was frequenting the Damson Hotel. Okay. This is what you've learned here today. All the books you read, all the podcasts, all the seminars. That's dinosaur shit, in case you don't recognize it. It's a big pile of shit. You have not, and the reason it resonates with you is because they all tell you it's easy, they all tell you anybody can do it, and they all tell you, and the thing that I don't understand is why you listen to people that never made any money. I don't understand that part, but I stopped worrying about that 20 years ago. Every once in a while I ask Sally, why do they listen to this meathead? I mean, he hasn't made $50. He says, because he says it nice, Dan. Because many people shoot the messenger. They never get past shooting me because I'm the messenger of the message, so they never listen to the message. I turn off so many people, and I do it on purpose. I don't want you to like me. Friends are problems. Relatives are problems. Children are problems. Grandchildren, well, I don't say that about my grandkids, no. Grandkids, no. I'm looking forward to them not being problems. But for the most part, everybody's a problem because everybody wants something from you. You've got nothing to give. You've got no self-confidence. You've got low self-esteem. For the girls, my ass is too big, my tits are too small, my tits are too big, something, right? It's just personify a bad hair day. I didn't know what that meant. In my neighborhood, in the barrio, nobody ever had a bad hair day. I didn't hear that until I was a guy on Wall Street. And I was in my late 20s. I didn't know what a bad hair day was. I can't imagine anybody in my neighborhood saying, oh, I'm having a bad hair day. Fuck, they would have chopped their hair off. We know the kids are not programmed, okay? Except Tiger Woods has been programmed all his life. From when he was 3 years old there, when he was on television, showing Bob Hope on that talk show 40 years ago. The Williams sisters are programmed for success, high performance. But you weren't. One of the greatest comeback stories ever. And when Tiger was asked, prior to him winning the Masters again, for I believe the 5th time, about giving up, he said, I'd never give up. You listen to some of the motivational stuff about Elon Musk, I would never give up. Steve Jobs, I would never give up. Dan Peña, I would never give up. Henry Ford I, I would never give up. Heineken, who was programmed for success because he comes from a dynasty. But he would never give up. And I'm sure his daughter, who's the current chairman and CEO, she would never give up. How many of you, even, don't raise your hand, even remotely can relate to being, you can relate to being a failure. He hadn't won a major in 11 years, yet he kept trying. Of course, he's got $700 or $800 million in the bank, so it's easy to keep trying. You'll say, that will be your excuse. Do you realize, and with all the problems he's had, and I've had a few problems myself, but people like us don't ever give up. And when everybody agrees with me, I know I'm doing something fucking wrong. When my lawyers agree with me, when my accountants agree with me, I know I'm doing something wrong by definition. Because if they were so fucking smart, why am I paying them $2,000 an hour and waking them up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Those that give advice, if you can't do, teach. That used to be the old saying. Well, I've done and teach. Now, I'm a first-generation Mexican. My mother and grandmother swam across the Rio Grande River illegally as illegal aliens in 1924. If my grandmother would be okay with me saying this, my mother would die. She would die if she knew I was telling this story about her. She's been gone a long time, so I feel very free. Because she's not going to swoop down and grab me. But I'm first generation. I used to be the most wealthy Mexican in the United States. I'm not anymore, but I used to be. And as I told somebody earlier today before the talk started, my dad was interviewed back in the 80s. I got some special award at the Hispanic Man of the Year, blah, blah, blah. And he's on television. They say, Mr. Peña, this is Mr. Peña, my father. You're very proud of your son, I'm sure. And my father looked right in the camera and said, my son is successful not because of me, but my son is successful in spite of me. Most of you in this room, to the degree that you've attained any success, are successful in spite of your parents. Remember, I asked you, do you want your kids to be like your parents? You said no! When the dean of the School of Business was asked, Dr. Shirley Teeter was asked, you've known Danny Peña a long time, what changes have you seen in the last 20, 25 years in Mr. Peña? And she again looked right in the camera, Stanford PhD, as I recall, she says, the only thing that's changed with Danny Peña is his accomplishments caught up with his big fucking mouth. Now this is a woman that would not say shit if it was in her mouth. But she had built up animosity for 25 years because I've been talking shit like this since I was a teenager. Remember Muhammad Ali when he was Cassius Clay? Well, most of you know. He was Cassius Clay first, then Muhammad Ali. Remember, I'm the greatest, right? Hadn't won a fight yet. Well, I've been talking this shit since I'm a teenager. I didn't know how it was going to manifest itself. But I knew I was gifted. I didn't know how I was gifted. I didn't know I was a genius then, which I am. I didn't know that because I was in jail all the time. And if it wasn't for the grace of Allah that the teacher didn't move 6 inches and I killed that teacher, I wouldn't be standing here today. I dropped an aquarium, 45-pound aquarium out of the 2nd floor on my teacher. Had I thought about it? No. Was it a bright thing to do? No. Did I wish I had done it, could undo it? Yes. But he didn't die. Dislocated his shoulder. His shoulder was down here. But it's part of who I am. Most of you wouldn't know bad times of the bitch in the ass. And that's why the boxing, I alluded to it a minute ago, the boxing is so popular. And we don't show everything on YouTube because some of the shit's so embarrassing. I don't want to hurt the feelings of, their kids or grandkids may see that shit someday. But the fear in their eyes. Like Mike Tyson used to say, everybody's got a goddamn plan until I punch him in the face. The fear in the eyes. And when the women get in there and start duking it out, it's a sexual experience for me. But most of the people on the planet today have never been in a fight like that. Now, what did my parents do different? Remember, I'm from the barrio. My mother gave me dancing lessons at Arthur Murray for $10 a month. I learned how to ballroom dance. I'm still can trip the light fantastic. To be a ballroom dancer in East Los Angeles was a death threat. Nobody ballroom danced in East LA, except me. My mother bought a set of women's golf clubs, Patty Burr golf clubs from Sears and Roebuck for $19.95, a little beginner set, and I took free golf lessons at the park. Nobody played golf in East LA. I took free tennis lessons at the park. Nobody played tennis in East LA. I believed in the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, and that. My cousins that are a little older than me said till I was 19 years old, which is a lie, but a lot longer than anybody else. Because my parents, especially my mother, wanted me to have that dream. And the biggest, in my mind, is they didn't speak Spanish in the house. First language for both of my parents was Spanish. They didn't speak Spanish in the house because my mother didn't want me speaking English with a Spanish accent, because I would be discriminated against. And number 6 on the list, by accident, she found a book by Dr. Benjamin Spock on child rearing in 1946. And she lived that book like it was the Bible. And that book, behind the Bible, is the 2nd most selling book of all time with 55 million copies. And I would highly recommend, if your kids are less than 8 years old, you still got a chance. If your kids are 8 years old, you're fucked. Because self-esteem is already there or it's not there. But those are the things that my parents did as uneducated, illegal aliens. And what have your parents done? Nothing. Now, this is our grandson. We're a future legend. And that's how we dress him. I don't dress him. His father does, and his mother. There's little chance that he will not be exposed to every single thing that I know and his father knows. There's little chance. He's going to be talking shit when he's 5. He's currently moving on his first birthday now, coming up. He's been going to be talking, I'm the fucking greatest. Maybe not the fucking word. I'm the greatest. Most of you in this room were taught not to be selfish. Share your toys, right? Wrong! Most of you in this room are pleasers. Everybody understand a pleaser? Say it in Dutch. Oh, it's the same? Okay, it's the same. Okay. You're pleasers because you want to be liked. Most women are pleasers. Now, he can be the President of the United States. Oh, shit. We're brought innocent into this life, then life happens. Most info given success is wrong unless you are lucky enough to have high-performance parents, and that's questionable. My children, our children, can't believe that I can fill up rooms like this because they've been hearing it since their second trimester. Everything I say, my kids can spit out verbatim. They're both high performance. They don't understand why people, as our daughter would say, Kelly, says, Daddy treats everybody the same, like shit. If you had been treated like shit more, you would be sitting here listening to this old psychopath in front of this audience. Corporal punishment, meaning you can beat children in school, ended in 1963 in America. I am the last student to be beaten legally in the United States of America. May 1963. My senior year in high school. They outlawed it the next year, starting in September. When Sally and I went to my 50th reunion a few years ago, they asked me, would you reenact the beating? And I said, well, I'm not going to let anybody beat. No, we want you to beat somebody else, who was another guy who was gotten in a lot of trouble. Just memorializing the fact that that year was the last year you could beat kids. If you go back and look at the stats, education in America peaked out in 1963. It's been going this way since 1963. They ended corporal punishment in 1963. There was no accountability, no responsibility since 1963. Is it a coincidence? I don't think so. I don't think so. Unfortunately, you're forged by what you've seen and what you've done. In most cases, you haven't seen or done anything. I.e., you're here. I.e., you're here. No. Hit the button. In your entire lives, what have you experienced? Weak, lackluster parents, no high-performance role model, low bar expectations, little or no accountability, little or no responsibility, leading to little or no accomplishments, leading to our snowflake society. Snowflake is you melt under pressure. Now, I was telling the organizers here, which is true, we've had people piss their pants during these talks. We've had people shit their pants during these talks. We've had people crying. I haven't even got to the hard parts yet. We've had people cry. We've had people throw up. All sitting just like you fucking dipshits are. Because I hit raw nerves. I hit raw nerves. And again, if I turn 13, well, I said a few before, but 13, like in the class that I taught 25 years ago, or over 20 years ago, I will consider myself to be successful. Because it's hard to get you to go outside your comfort zones. There is a section on my website, that says, Dan does the unusual, where I've done things outside my comfort zone to stretch myself. It's pretty difficult for me to get scared these days. But most of you go out of your way to stay in your comfort zone. For those intellectuals in the room, it is one thing to study war and another thing to live a warrior's life. Why do you think, like the current movie out there right now is John Wick 3? I think it's being advertised. Why do you think that movie is so popular? Because it's the antithesis of what you are. Why do you think that those war kind of movies are so darn popular? Because it's the antithesis of what you've done in your life and what you've seen. When I was in Poland a year and a half ago, speaking at in Krakow, and as in the Netherlands, they had some great fighters against the Nazis, etc. I mean, I asked the students, I said, what happened to all the balls that the Polish people used to have? And somebody jumped up and some girl said, it died with my grandfather's generation. Which is probably true. Because Poland thinks it's heaven as well. In fact, most of Europe. There's no real reason to complain. I complain if the Germans decide to give up what I call Nazi guilt and stop supporting the EU like they do. And they're doing that out of guilt for what happened during the Second World War. If the German economy pulls the plug on the EU, you're through. You're finished. You're kaput. You're fucked. So you better hope they keep on hanging on to Jewish guilt. Do you understand that Germany supports the fucking EU? Do you understand? They already know they're desperate to fit in. Now, how can you train your kid? Now, I'm not recommending this, by the way. But this kid doesn't know that he's in a heroin situation. Most people in this room, myself included, would probably think twice before I sat in the middle of that big snake. But if you don't know that any different, you just do it. We give a scholarship out, we give several scholarships out at the high school my father graduated from in 1936. Student athlete scholarships. And the goals that they have, almost all the kids we give scholarships to, not because we pick them because of that, want to come back to the barrio and get back to the community. Almost all of them. 95% of them. Because they've seen where it makes a difference. They also see that Sally and I are giving this money every year in the name of my father for scholarships. But they understand 3 people sleeping in one bed. They understand 1 toilet for a family of 7. They understand all that, whereas most Europeans don't. Now, it's not the same kid, but if this guy had been raised with those crocodiles, he might not be afraid as he looks in this. But it's what we're exposed to. We told our children growing up, it's not what happens to you in life, kids. It's how you interpret. Like, I don't understand, like in Facebook, people commit suicide because they get slammed or bullied on Facebook. That's so far beyond my comprehension. I don't understand how people live and die on how many likes or unlikes or whatever you call it. I don't understand that. I just don't understand. Because that's why we're fucked up. It's not what happens to us in life, it's how we interpret what happens to us in life. Now, when I was a kid, if you and I had a disagreement, we stepped out of the classroom or the bar or wherever, and whoever was still standing after the fight, that's who won. Now, somebody will say something nasty on Facebook. And it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And the current economic environment is the best for this methodology. And if you can muster up the balls, the grit, intestinal fortitude, the stamina, etc., to follow QLA, they're giving away money. Literally. Now, people ask, that's me. I'm 14 years old. My parents exposed me not just to the things that I showed you. My father believed that I should be exposed to life-threatening things as a kid. Not just him beating on me. And so there I am wrestling around with, that's Jack and the Lion from MGM fame, when I'm 13, 14 years old. And to this day, I'm not afraid of big animals. I mean, Sally and I have trekked with the lions. We've trekked with the big tigers. We've gone up and trekked with the big silverback gorillas in Rwanda. I mean, when we get this close to them, like this. And yes, people get hurt all the time. But it's part of the things that we do to expand our comfort zone. Now they tell me they're not drugging the animals. I don't believe that. But anyway, but I think it was a she. She was awful docile. And you can see Sally is back walking. Oh, she sat with the big tiger as well. Okay, next. And there we are, and that's not a Photoshop. We're standing right next to the big silverback gorilla. That's Charlie. And the big silverback gorillas have a proclivity for blondes. They like blonde women. They don't like blonde guys, but they like blonde women. And so a couple times we've been up with the big silverbacks, they chase Sally around. And you can't touch them, but they can touch you. And when they touch hard. But that's Charlie, and a gentle animal, and it's expensive, but if you ever get the opportunity to go there and trek with the silverbacks, it's a life-changing experience. And there we are trekking with the lions, and the lion didn't think much of me, but we continue to do these things to get outside our comfort zone. Because it's very easy. I haven't had to work in 35 years. 35 years. People ask me, how do you get out of bed every day? I never thought of it that way, but I still work 50, 60 hours a week. But I don't call it work. I'm sure at 5 o'clock, the office buildings here in the Netherlands, you get run down at the door from people leaving the office building. It's no different in other places of the world, but since we're in the Netherlands, I'll use the Netherlands as an example. I still try to push the edges of the envelope. Now, this is a classic example of millennials. We're there and we get up early in the morning to jump, and there's the wind is gusting 40 to 60 miles an hour. And they shut down the jump. And there's a bunch of kids like you. There's about a line of 40, 50 of you all jumping around. Well, when that fucking wind dies down, I'm going to jump that motherfucker while you do it. So I wait about 10 minutes, and the wind hasn't died down, so I take a $100 bill. I go up to the head of the line, and I said, young man, don't you think the wind's died down now? Absolutely, sir. I go jump. Same 40 to 60 mile an hour wind. And then I go back to the line. And they say, hey, old timer, was that you? Well, when that wind died down, we're going to... They're still standing in line. 5 years later, that's you. There's never an easy time to make a hard decision. Now, what's even more interesting, if you notice, I'm not strapped by my feet. I'm strapped at the waist. Because I had new knees put in. I had new knees put in. And after the fact, I Googled it. At my age, when you hit the bottom of the snap, it can knock your cataracts out. Now, if I had Google fucked it, I might not have jumped. I don't do too much research. And when I jumped from the stratosphere in Las Vegas a couple of years ago, after that, we don't, that's not 100% accurate because we didn't show how I really landed on the ground. I landed on my head and shoulder because my knee went out, because the knees. But we decided for posterity, those pictures will show and not me wobbling around on the ground and then picking me up off the ground. But Sally tried to explain to me, she said, Dan, go and watch them land. And she's thinking I shouldn't jump. So I don't want to go watch them land because there were people crashing and burning when they hit that 888 feet jump off the building. And so, but I didn't. I knew that I didn't want to have any negative thought, you know. And so for time eternal, it's me landing like an Olympian with a perfect dismount. But I continue to do it. And next year, I'm going to jump out of a jet plane going 750 miles an hour, Mach 2. I don't need to do this shit. Other than it's going to cost $25,000, I mean, why? Once you become fearless, life becomes limitless. We have an exercise in the seminar. What if you weren't afraid? You feeling afraid of what? Okay? What if you weren't afraid? For some of you that are married, to tell my wife to keep her fucking mouth shut. Okay? Women, to tell her husband to keep their fucking mouth shut. To tell my mom, I don't need to talk to you twice a day. Whatever you're afraid of, okay? Everybody's afraid of something. But what if you weren't afraid of that? Life becomes limitless. Most people, for example, have jobs. And if you tell your boss he's full of shit, you can get fired. Except now it's almost impossible to get fired. You'd have to go piss on his leg or something to get fired. So even now, because of the politically correct human resource laws, it's tough to get fired. So you can tell your boss he's full of shit. Not in those words, but I mean, did you ever think, I know all the right way, did you ever consider this, or maybe we should think of it this, now I say, you're full of shit. I mean, how did you get, other than you're sleeping with the boss's daughter, how did you get this job? And I'm sure some of you have experienced that. If one thing you take away from here, the one thing that you're most afraid of, now half of you are going to run out of money before you die. Now I'd be afraid of that. That's what I'd be afraid of. But that's not my problem. And hasn't, for 35 years, that hasn't been my challenge. And my challenge now is to get as many of you meatheads across the goal line as I can before I hang it up. I'll get back to it. I'll get back to it. Okay. Now, command allows no intimacies. It's lonely at the top. The reason why more of you aren't more successful in this room is because you want to fit in. You want to chill. You want all the things that I poke fun at, but you're dead serious. And the reason that you're that way is because you've seen your parents. You've had shitty role models. Some of you, I hope I'm not, but I'm the alpha male father you never had. Trust me, I don't need any more kids. But kids gravitate to me because I am that alpha male role model. But when I was growing up, all my dad's mates were Korean War, World War II war heroes. They were just like my dad. So I thought everybody was that way. Little did I know that virtually nobody's that way. My dad's generation in the Netherlands here would have been the guys that fought World War II. Would have probably been your grandfathers or great-grandfathers? Grandfathers. Okay, look at them as opposed to you. One of the hardest things about QLA is the part about it's lonely at the top, and that you can't interface, or you shouldn't interface, with the rest of the world. Now, the world's fucked up. Rioting every place. Unfortunately. If love got the job done, kids, we wouldn't have this. It doesn't. It sounds good, you know, in that movie, Love Story, being in love is not having to say, what? You're sorry. What a load of shit that is. Love is never having to say you're sorry. Not! Yet, there are guys that tell you, and there are softer renditions of me. Michael is a softer rendition of me. Although, you know, a lot of what he says, I know where he got it from. He got it from me. But I'm the hardcore end of the continuum. There are softer additions. But all of my mentees want you to be all you can be. Some want you to be happier than I do, because happiness, I can write a check and make you happy. There's not a man, woman, or it in this room that I can't write a check and make happy. 100% guaranteed. There's not a man, woman, or it that I can't make happy by merely writing a check. So what does that say about you? I know what it says. I drove by this yesterday. I drove by this university and yelled boo. 35 people went to the hospital. 734 needed crisis counseling. 429 needed a safe area or room, and classes were canceled for a week. Now, if this weren't true, it would be funny. When we were again in Poland, and we're in the physics building, I think it was, and we're on the third floor of the physics building, and it's quiet. So I asked the guide, why is it so quiet? He says, this is a safe floor. And I said, safe from what? He says, safe if the troubles and trials and tribulations of life get too much, they can come to this floor. What? Are you shitting me? No. And they have safeguards. They pull out a card. If the teacher's getting in his face, and they just put this card up. And then the teacher's supposed to stop yelling at him. What? This is a free Polish and they fought the Nazis. There are schools that have that. And I know that that's unfortunate. That's an unfortunate occurrence. I think some of you guys look like these kids. If your adult child needs a safe space to avoid offensive words, you failed as a parent. When you should, you know, they used to say in my day, spare the rod, spoil the child. In other words, don't discipline the kid, you spoil him. Well, I didn't live through that. My dad didn't spare the rod. He believed in the rod. Because my dad was a tough guy. And he was tough until he died. If anything in my seminar offends you, blame your parents for raising a pussy. Now, again, the people that have kids, they have kids 7 or less. 7 or less. Not too many. Okay. When a kid's 6 months old, unless it's got a change of nappy or it shit its pants, they're happy. Babies are happy, right? Yeah, right? They stay happy. 3 years old, they're still happy. 6 7 years old. It's getting towards the end of happiness though. 15 years. Now, some people blame it on hormones. I don't blame it on hormones. 20, forget about it. 25, they're at each other's throat. What happens is that the first 6 or 7 years, kids are happy because they can do anything they want. There's no expectations, you know. And as they grow out of that artificial bubble wrap life occurs until we get to 25, and it's called a young couple, maybe married, maybe not. When you see, there's a great movie, English movie called Great Expectations, made in 1946 or 47, and he was a poor kid who somebody gave him a bunch of money, and he was raised to be a rich kid, but it got down to his expectations changed because people come from wealth, come from upbringings, as they used to call it, have different expectations. I had no expectations on me. The only goal my parents had for me is to keep me alive until the age of reason. Alive. The last time I got arrested was February the 10th, 1977. I was 31 and a half, and I got arrested for assault with a deadly weapon on a policeman. I was already ostensibly rich, Rolls Royce, matching Mercedes. I gave up driving that day, and Sally would attest to, I haven't driven in 25 years, although she likes buying me cars. For those of you that look at my website, I don't drive any of those cars. But the only expectation my father had was to keep me alive until the age of reason because of the crazy shit I did. Up until I was 31 and a half years old. The guy on the right is Dutch.
That's right.
What happened? Holland is in heaven. Mr. Heineken says, we know it, Mr. Peña, but we don't want to talk about it. How many of you, don't raise your hand, in life, when some touchy subject comes up, and either you, your wife, your significant other, your mother, your father say, I don't want to talk about it. We've all heard that, right? Why don't they want to talk about it? They're not saying it's not true. They're not saying it's a lie. They're just saying they don't want to talk about it. Because there's never an easy time to make a hard decision. There's never an easy time to talk about hard, cold facts. Now, at the University of Toronto, I had the privilege of speaking at a couple of years ago. They called my office and said, well, you should be worried about security, Mr. Peña, because we're afraid you're going to get hurt. And I laughed and I said, okay. So I brought a cricket bat. So I'm about an hour, or about this time frame in my talk, and I had the cricket bat like sitting right here. Finally, somebody said, excuse me for interrupting, sir, but what's that? First of all, what is that? It's a cricket bat. Second, what is it there for? And I said, your administration told me I should be worried about it because you're going to hurt me, man. I needed security. And then they kind of giggled and laughed. And then, during the Q&A, an hour later, you asked me, well, what were you going to do with a cricket bat? Are you fucking shitting me? What am I going to do with it? I'm going to rip your fucking head off and shoot down your neck, you little cunt. What do you mean, what am I going to do with it? That's where the world is today. And even though there was about 400 in the audience, I can only hit the first 5 or 6. But the fact that nobody wants to be the first 5 or 6, none of them are going to come. Now, where I come from, I wouldn't have gotten asked those questions. But what am I going to do with the cricket bat? I'm going to split your motherfucking head open and shit down your neck. That's what I'm going to do with it. Now, for those of you that have no balls, I don't mean ladies, okay, I don't mean ladies. This is a quick testosterone test. You take your left hand, and if this finger is shorter than this finger, we're talking about these two fingers here, right? This finger is shorter than this finger. Everybody understand? Follow me? Now don't show everybody because I don't want to embarrass anybody. But to give you an idea, Josh Kim, you know the kid, teenage phenom, his finger is like this. His testosterone finger. Now this test is only 98% accurate. So for those of you that have not forget ladies, it's only for men. For those of you that don't have any testosterone, you're going to say you're the 2%. My testosterone level, the last time we checked, by the way, 400, 300 to 700, 800 is considered good for a 40-year-old man. At my age, I'm not supposed to have any testosterone by now. My testosterone, the last time we checked, was 1,850. 1,850. 1,850. I can eat millennials 10 at a time. Kill 10 at a time. But this is a quick test. By the looks on your faces, I know what you registered. This is one of my mentees who's so ashamed, by the way, I just talked to him on the phone, who's so ashamed of being a pussy. There's a club outside Paris. They go and beat each other once a month. He blames his parents and grandparents. If love got the job done, most parents would have produced high performers. We know that's not the case. We know we're not getting the film, so this is we know 87% of the world already. Go ahead. Life expanding. Now, this is what your parents cheated you out of. Life expands and contracts with courage through pain. Pain. It's like Pavlov's dog. Pain. Electric shock. Shock. You remember that because you feel it. You resonate with pain. That's why for most of you, you should have gone into the military. Yes, did the military make a man out of me? Yes. Was I a crazy psychopath before I went? Yes. I was just a well-trained psychopath when I got out. This is my dad. He looks like a movie star, but this is my dad, my alpha male dad. This is not much of an exaggeration of what he looked like. He was not a great father, but he was an extraordinary man's man, and I'm the result. And my kid brother, who's 17 years, my junior, who's the #2 guy at the largest fire department in the world, the Los Angeles County Fire Department, at my 70th birthday a few years ago, got up and made a speech, and he's very high performance. He went up the civil service ladder. He said, if I wish Dad had beat me like he beat Danny, I would have been more successful. Because he equates the beatings that my father gave us to the discipline that we have and still have. I'm indebted to my father for living, but to my teacher for living well, Alexander the Great. We're shackled by our dad's sins. When one has not had a good father, we must create one. Children begin by loving their parents. After a time, they judge them. Rarely ever do they forgive them. Second thing to take away from here, think about, will you ever forget your parents for fucking love? Because nobody else fucked you up. It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Sigmund Freud, being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Rarely done, I might add. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. I cannot think of any need in childhood as strong as the need for a father's protection. And for those of you that have been told single parenthood is okay, that's a fucking lie. I don't need to go beyond that, because it is. 25 years doing this, almost 26. It's really the psychology of the high performer. We're building to the crescendo. It's all like sex. It comes at the end, guys. Oh, 2 years ago, because of emails we got, I don't understand, there's so much material. There's 32 gigs free. So we created QLA for Dummies. These tests have 95% accuracy, proving whether you're going to be successful or not. It's really 99.5, but the lawyers tell me I can't say that. So I say 95. But it's really 99.5. 98% of the people that take the super success test fail. 96% of the people that take the snowflake test fail. For example, this is one of the questions. Somebody spits in your mother's face. What are the alternative answers? The most answered alternative is, I try to ascertain where he was in life that day. Was he having a bad day? Spits in your mom's face. Now where I come from, you find a pipe, you find a brick, you find a knife, and you kill him. That's where I come from. I'm not asking, I don't give a fuck what kind of day you had. Oh, this is going to be your last day. Or I'm going to die trying. And you can overcome fear by positive experiences. Comfort zone, as I've talked about. What gets measured gets better. We know that. True self-esteem has to be earned. These are the simple steps. All of my startup, cash out, repeat. Now they use Quantum Leap. It's in the newspapers. It's here. It's on the Economist magazine. And my Quantum Leap, and I have a fellow member of the secret society here, at least one, is I came from the barrio, and that's my house that they tore down. Became an officer, and in America, when you become an officer, you're an officer and a gentleman by the United States Congress. And then more recently, when I had got my investiture by the Queen of England a couple of years ago, a year and a half ago, that's a quantum leap from the barrio to the Queen. And making and creating $775 billion in the meantime. Okay, stop. Okay. Now, I didn't know there were 700 books on my subject matter. But what would you rather have, somebody that's done 700 deals or read 700 books? It's a no-brainer, right? Well, then I bet you there's people in here that have read 500 books. I'm not going to embarrass anybody by raising your hand, asking you to raise your hand. 500 books and or podcasts, or I'm sure. I told you about Success. Now, most of you have not ventured into the high-performance life of an entrepreneur because you know, if not because you read it someplace, intuitively you know that up to 90% of all startups fail the first year. That means the odds of your deal is going to fail. You know that. Everybody has an uncle, a cousin, a grandfather that failed at something. Everybody. And that's what's kept you from either going out for the first time or changing. And it's a heart-rendering thing when you start a business. Most businesses, you know within 6 weeks to 6 months whether they work or not. Most of you that are in business for yourself or just bought yourself a job. You should turn the key. 95% of the people that are in business here should turn the key on their business. Turn the key means close it down, and walk away. But 1 in 20 does make it. And this is what Jeff looked like 20 years ago with Amazon. One of the great entrepreneur stories of all time. Arguably the greatest entrepreneur story of all time. I don't know Jeff, but I know he works 100 hours. Being honest may get you many friends, but being honest may not get you many friends, but it'll always be the right ones. Tacit approval. Most of you have lived your lives through tacit approval, meaning you and I are talking and you hear me say something and I don't shake my head this way, that way. Okay. Then you go to the next guy and say, because I didn't say no, you go to the next guy and says, I think Dan's on board with that. Okay. Then he goes to the next gal and the story changes. So when you hear shit, you gotta say, that's shit. That's wrong. That's wrong on so many levels, I don't know where to start. But you don't, because down deep inside you want this little dipshit to like you, and then this guy wants this girl for sure, because it's a girl, he for sure wants her to like him. And that's why we get so screwed up. How many times have you not told somebody something because you were looking for a better time? There's never a good time. Even Warren Buffett, this is an old tweet that you probably wish he never wrote. You will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing things with logic. True power is restraint. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. Breathe and allow things to pass. This is really germane to Facebook and social media, where words control people. And people commit suicide, which is hard to believe. The first method of estimating the intelligence of a ruler is around. If I were to judge everybody in this room by the 5 people that you're closest to, what would I think of you? Yes. I rest my case. Most of you got married for the wrong reason. Most of the guys got married just to get their willy wet. Most of you had kids for the wrong reason. I can't understand why I've got a mentee who gets paid $3,000 a month to tell you how to get your willy wet. $3,000 a month. As Joe Rogan said when I was interviewed by him a couple years ago, that's a mortgage payment, Dan. $3,000 a month to teach meathead how to get laid. Yes, I got more ass than a toilet seat at a bus station. Yes, and I'm proud of it. Rock stars had nothing on me. Yes, I had groupies. They stand in line at the toilet. What happened to you? But I've always talked shit. Yes, I'm the greatest fuck there ever was. You're right, honey. You're third in line, though. What the fuck happened? Now, this is Gerard Heineken. Is it Gerard or Gerard? Okay, well, close enough. You know who I'm talking about. Okay. Now, he doesn't look like anybody in the audience. Do we have any Heinekens in the audience? I didn't think so. Okay. And this is the gentleman that I met, Freddie. Both hard as nails. Freddie's daughter, hard as nails. Andrew Carnegie, hard as nails. Henry Ford is hard as nails. John Rockefeller is hard as nails. Steve Jobs, harder than nails. The current CEO of Apple regularly begins sending emails at 4:30 a.m. to previously held Sunday night staff meetings by telephone to prepare for the next week. Cook shared in May 13th about the leadership focused on people, strategy, and execution. He explained, if you get those three things right, 4:30 in the morning. Go ahead. Amazon. 80 hours a week to keep your job. 85 hours a week to be considered for promotion. 90 hours a week to get promoted. The rules are not imposed by Jeff. The rules are imposed by the fellow employees because they're in a high-performance environment. Peer pressure works. Fear works. Success leaves clues. Elon Musk's favorite word is fuck. He can't say three words without saying fuck. 100, 120, 140 hours a week today. We've grown fucking soft. Elon Musk, after Vance noted the only hundreds of people were working at Tesla's headquarters on a Sunday. My proceeds from PayPal acquisition were 180 million. I put 100 million in SpaceX, 70 million in Tesla, and 10 million in Solar City. I had to borrow money to rent, and he only gave himself a 10% chance of any of those projects succeeding. 10%. SpaceX worker reveals a brutal company model helped him survive all-nighters working for Elon. Notorious workaholic Elon Musk is so tied to the office that he's been known to sleep on the floor in his factory so he can work nearly around the clock. Same thing, okay? My mentality is that of a samurai. I would rather commit seppuku, that means kill yourself, than fail. Success leaves clues. All these guys are fucking samurai. That's why it's only for 0.00001%. You say you want to be more successful. You listen to pods, but what are the sacrifices you're willing to make? What are your pay, price to action? Most of you are tubs of shit, out of shape. You know how to get in shape. It all starts in the kitchen, right? 60% of the people in America are obese. 50% of the Brits are obese. I don't know the stats here, but looking around, probably 50%. You all know. I just had a mentee run a marathon. I was embarrassed when he told me he ran 4 hours and 50 minutes. I ran 3 hours. Why would you run a marathon in 5 hours? Rather go jack off in front of the fucking porn. Now they run for the experience because they got no balls. What the fuck? All night, and then he's complaining. All night I had no friends on my birthday. I spent it all alone. So what? But QLA works for this too. This little shit came to me 3 years ago. The best he had ever done in British University archery was 18th place. I said, we'll win a gold medal. I'll train you if you do such and such. That's him, first place, university archery. He couldn't pull a 120-pound bull back. He went from firing 50 to 100 arrows to 500 to 700 arrows a day. And it works better for fat-ass women. That's a professor at Columbia University. I chopped that fat off her like a fucking chainsaw on her butt. Yum! Yum! 95% of you aren't happy with the way you look in the mirror at yourself. "5% body fat and six packs and popping pills is all procrastination. And all those people are poor." Yep. Wrongfully, people focus on the teenage multimillionaire who came to me when he was 17. Another group of you focus on the 500 billion, the largest deal in recorded history. Those are both great achievements. I did neither of them. My kids did. Josh flying around in his jet plane is quite an accomplishment for a teenager. No question about that. But we got a kid here that made €1 million last year. And at the university that I spoke at, he's Polish. Not one of the students in the university had a room this big even went up to ask him, "How did you make the €1 million?" He's still a student. Not one single solitary student of the 300 or 400 in the room asked him, "Jan, how did you make €1 million as a fucking university student?" What does that tell you? When I was at Oxford, I had a kid at Oxford who made about $600 or $700 million after the seminar. And I said it at Oxford. Not one Oxford student asked me his name. His name was Christopher. Why don't they even ask, "Well, how did you make the 700 million? Because you're pretending to want to be successful. You're pretending that you want to change your life. Because it fills up time in your miserable fucking lives. Because you're leading quiet lives of desperation. Teenage multimillionaire, Matt, another one. These guys turned down 20 million for 5% of their company, IT company. Turned down 20 million for 5% of their company. That was a mistake, I told them. That's Josopowicz, 700 million. Came to me with grease under his fingernails, a mechanic, flying around in his jet. That's Josh again. Now, this is an island in Hawaii. This is Josh's house that he's got plans being built. He had that a goal at when he was 14 years old. And this is somebody that saw Josh. He lives in a penthouse in Vegas. A few days ago, I saw Mr. Kim. He's a residential entrance, the residential tower in Las Vegas where I work. I told another team member, this young kid probably got lost. Hotel guest got lost. He's probably lost. Then I found out it was Kim. He lives in the penthouse. You know that. That's the guy that did the $500 billion deal. Klaus Kleinfeld, long-term mentee. Talked about him already. Mikey the Pizza Boy, we know about. He makes movies now. Came to me with pizza dough. These are just success stories. Oh, no, this kid, current. He's a second-year university student who I believe is going to surpass Josh Kim. He's 20 years old. 775, we know that. Now, the problem you kids have is, see, there's no compression algorithm for experience. You can't go write a code to replicate my 50 years of experience, my thousands of transactions, my tens of thousands of decisions. There's no algorithm for that. And that's why most of the people that you listen to are full of shit. And or you've got low expectations of yourself. So their full of shit results are just perfect for your low expectations. We don't have to make a mistake. Sometimes I think that's not true. What differentiates? Now, For the intellects in the room, we got the thinkers and the doers. From the smiles on your face, we must have a lot of thinkers. It's not a journey, it's a process. Find somebody, whether it's Michael, or me, or Brian Rose, or Dan Locke, to name a few, or Klaus Kleinfeld, and do what they do. Mimic, copy, model, whatever the word. Mentoring has been around since Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. Mentoring, we know that. Now, the good news, I'm going to leave you with some good news. Warren Buffett, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, and you are all introverts. So I'm trying to give you an uplift here. You're all introverts. It's okay. It's okay to be a pussy. It's okay to be a snowflake. It's okay to be a flapping vagina. It's okay. And when I say vagina, I mean coward. I don't mean the female genitalia. I don't mean it that way. Although it sounds that way, but that's not how I mean it. Nobody has more respect for women than I do. Nobody's known them. I probably know more women than this whole room. In fact, I'm positive I have. That's a sad fucking commentary, you know? That one old man, psycho-fucking-path, has known more women than the whole fucking auditorium. Jesus Christ! We're going to hell in a handbasket. We're not retrievable. I've just written about in a Greek newspaper recently where they compared me to these three guys, wrongfully so. I deal with Army, Navy, you know that. Naval Academy, you know that. It was my privilege. I coached the Kentucky rugby team to their national championship a few months ago. We know that. And I have a big following in the military, which I'm sure you all know. Now, interest rates are the lowest in 5,000 years. We know that. I said that. Go ahead. I love that thing. Now, many of you in this room have been told money's dirty. Many of you in this room have been told money's not important. Many in this room have been told there's other things more important than money. That's why you haven't been able to generate the wealth that you deserve. I say you deserve it because everybody in this room deserves it. Because I want you to save the world, so I don't have to. I want you to cure the rainforest, so I don't have to. I want you to cure whatever you fucking want to cure, so I don't have to. And I believe with all my heart, when Warren Buffett gave $35 billion to the Melinda Gates Foundation about 5 years ago, because he didn't want to fool around with global warming, if there is such a thing. He didn't want to fool around with malaria, AIDS, the rainforest, so he just gave the money to the Gates Foundation and let them fool around with it. Rightly or wrongfully, most of the super wealthy people are worried about themselves. Not you. Not the starving people in Biafra. I'm not saying that's right, I'm just saying that's how it is. Surround yourself with those on the same mission as you. Show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Association is power. You hang out with monkeys, you are. Success is like being pregnant. Everyone says congratulations, but nobody knows how many times you got fucked. Born limitless, limiting beliefs, releasing, not gaining emotional baggage. What learned can be unlearned. And this is really important, guys and gals. You can unlearn, painfully, you can unlearn everything you've learned heretofore. You can unlearn it, but you got to work at it. It's all free on my website. Be one of the 10,000 a day that come. Start with QLA for Dummies. Take the tests, and you can do it. And there are softer renditions of me, i.e. you're going to hear Michael in a couple minutes. And I've known him 20 years or more, he'll tell his story. Okay, I say, what the fuck happened? He says that, no, the next guy says, we're protesting because Donald Trump is not mentally stable. Now, this was not here in the Netherlands, but it could have been. Okay?
Yeah, that was it.
That's, well, yeah, I have a 4-hour speech about global warming, but I'm not going to give it.
But that's right now. That's right now.
Okay.
In a couple of minutes, we're going to listen to the story of one of your mentees.
Yes.
There is this story of him that he went to your castle a long time ago, and you sent him away. What can you tell us about that?
Well, the first time he came, I gave a seminar just for him, as I recall, because he was a movie star. I called him a movie star, even though he wasn't a movie star, but he was a star in radio and eventually television. And he was too busy, or his schedule, he couldn't make a regular seminar. So I gave him a seminar. I think we spent 5 days. And he went off on his own, and he built a media company, as I recall. And I said that you got to be careful about this, this, and this. They're going to try to cheat you. They're going to steal. And oh no, they're not going to do that to me. And he'll tell you the story when he gets up here. But they essentially did exactly almost what I said was going to happen to him. Because unfortunately, some lessons you got to learn the hard way. And then he came back again about 10 years later to a regular seminar. He wanted to change his lifestyle, and then he came back again about 3 or 4 years ago, and he wanted to give back. I say that almost joking. He wanted to give back to you guys, and that there is a softer edge to QLA and being all you can be. And he certainly is the softer edge of QLA, but not just because he's Dutch. I mean, I'm the hardest edge of QLA, and there's 5 or 6 or 7 guys, not dissimilar to Michael, that have adapted it to either their religious beliefs, etc., meditating and stuff like that, which I don't do any of that stuff. But there's a place for you on the continuum. But the most important thing is, and I'm not stealing any of his words, is to get off your dead ass and do something. I mean, that's the most important, is that you can't get anything to change unless you change. And right now, like the slide said, Holland is not heaven. Times are good here, but they're not going to be forever. And as Mr. Heineken said, we all know that, Mr. Peña, but can you talk about something else?
Different, right, okay. We're going to listen to
Very good.
Michael Pilecki.
Thank you.
Dan Peña.
We'll talk to you later.